because the minority in Parliament is boycotting an orientation program for members of Parliament, citing the cost component of the program, saying it is too much and that they will not be a part of it. But what's the reality? Speaker Bagman has said the decision to hold the event at the Volta Serene Hotel in the Volta region is the result of a comprehensive evaluation of several factors. But the minority says there is political bias. But is there? Joining the conversation, we have Samuel Bing, Executive Director of Parliamentary Network Africa, via Zoom, Vincent Akwesifwa, Member of Parliament for Otafo, and on phone, Roxanne Nelson Dafiamekbo, or Dafiamekbo, MP South Dai constituency. We start the conversations with them. Vincent, a very good morning to you. Thank you for joining the conversation, sir.
Good morning, bro. How are you?
I am well. I hope you are too.
Yeah, I'm okay.
All right. Let's start off with the position of the minority on this. Why exactly is the minority saying it will not partake in this orientation on the back of cost?
Well, let me say a very good morning to you and to your cherished viewers. I think that consistency is key in our body politic. And what was wrong yesterday should be wrong today. And what was right yesterday should also be right today.
Right.
It cannot be that a certain principle or reasons are advanced to a cause today and tomorrow when nothing have changed. Different reasons will be advanced. In 2022, when Parliament decided to go to Rock City, to have post-budget workshop over there, the Speaker of Parliament was very clear in a statement when he mentioned that because of the situations or the environment of the country at the time, it was not right for us to go and do so and spend that amount of money. The Ghana Catholic Bishops Conference came to support this. H. Prempe came to support this. A number of CSOs also came to support this. And at the time, the argument was that it was proper for us to have it at the presence of Parliament so that we could save the taxpayer some money. Orientation, which is supposed to be done by the Parliament, and members of Parliament are supposed to also partake in it. It's quite different when it comes to post-budget, in the sense that I am a second timer. I've gone through this orientation before. And so I don't even see the need for me to travel all the way from Greater Accra region to the Volta region for another orientation session.
Vincent, quick interjection. Quick interjection. You've been there. You've done that. There are the new standing orders which came into play just how long ago? And I have seen some of you members of Parliament come here and dispute because some of you maybe still have a few things from the old to the new. You're telling me that because you've been in the 8th Parliament, you don't need this orientation? Is that what you're saying?
The truth is that there has been an organization, if you like, a workshop for us, where members of Parliament were trained on the standing orders, except to say that first-timers were not part of it at the time. So there has already been a training session for us members of Parliament who were part of the 8th Parliament on the standing orders. Again, the new standing orders is not too much different from the old one. Just some additions and subtractions were made to it. And so if anybody says that we have to travel all the way to Volta Serene for a second timer, third timer, fourth timer, fifth timer to do that, I don't see the need. If the resources were available, considering the circumstances in the country, we had enough resources to do so, then of course, I don't think it will be so much of a problem. But where we can replace it with a training session at the presence of Parliament, like we did some years ago I don't see why we should travel all the way to Volta Serene to go and do such
Vincent, let me just sneak in this quick bit, because we have Roxanne Nelson Dapiamepo as well. Sweetie Abachi will bring him in. But before we do that, just a quick point. The information I gather is that this wouldn't be the first time we're going to the Volta Serene Hotel. In fact, for this same kind of exercise, in the erstwhile administration, we had been there before. Why the difference now? Simply because the last time at Rock City, there were complaints about that situation? Because your administration
I agree with you that
there as well.
it's not the first time. I agree with you that it's not the first time. In fact, during my first term in office, that is, I think, 2021, we went to Volta Serene. It was in 2022 that argument was given by the Speaker of Parliament, supported heavily by the then minority, now majority in Parliament. The argument was because we had limited resources to do so. So I am asking, what changed? Do we now have enough resources to do these things? And so, yes, we've gone to Volta Serene before. At the time, there was some amount of unanimity from both aisle of the House that we could do so at Volta Serene. But in 2022, we were told that it is not possible. It was not right for us to do so. So I just want to know from the Speaker of Parliament what has changed. Now, do we have enough money? Do we have a lot of money, especially considering the fact that within about 6 or 8 weeks, the government has already internally borrowed about 67 billion Ghana cedis. Do we have money or we don't have money? If we have money, they should let us know, because the argument those times was that we did not have money. I don't think that today we have money. But if they think that we have money, they should let us know that we have money to be able to do so.
Well, thank you. Let me bring in Mr. Dapiamepo into the conversation at this point. Sir, thank you for joining the conversation. And how much money is going into this orientation? Looks like the argument all comes down to the cost involved. Can you tell us, an estimate of how much you're spending on this orientation?
Thank you very much.
Right.
Yes, thank you very much. Good morning to. I believe you're on the radio.
No, this is Joy News AM Show TV. And can you speak up for us?
Okay. So I'm in some small meeting, so I'm trying to excuse myself. Good morning to our viewers. First of all, Vincent has put out, the Honorable Vincent Asifua has put out some inaccuracies. And it's important that I correct them. One, it is not the Speaker that has taken us to who. The orientation for members of Parliament happens every year that Parliament is inaugurated. So it is the duty of the clerk to Parliament, the parliamentary service, to do that for members of Parliament. The search for a venue for such a program is conducted by the clerk to Parliament, deputy clerks. There are parliamentary service staffers whose duty it is to procure such services. In doing so, they are guided by the Public Procurement Act. They look for quotations and they select the best. So this propaganda about the Speaker must stop. It's in second term in Parliament, they ought to know better. Two, this is not the first time the Parliament of the Republic of Ghana is conducting business at Volta Serene. Indeed, I am in my 9th year in Parliament. The Parliament of Ghana, in the 9 years I've been in Parliament, has been to Volta Serene at least over 7 times. In all this, I have participated. 7 times. 7. Not 1. 7. The Parliament of Ghana has been to Kofodia several times. Even if committee, we go to Kofodia. When we go to Kofodia, there are 1 or 2 venues that have become like the usual venues. So this sudden penchant to say that we don't have money to go to Volta Serene is a total fabrication.
Well, Mr. Demoko,
hold on, please, hold on. Under the presidency of Nana Akufo-Addo, the parliament led by the Honorable Osei Mensah Boshu has been to Volta Serene over 6 times. He should check the record. Even under Speaker Michael Kwei, we have been to Volta Serene. So what is this thing about Volta Serene is expensive? It's a 5-star, it's a 6-star. They are putting all sorts of star rated, fabricating it to give Parliament a good look. Now, the other matter that I think I should correct is that he says that the difference between the old standing orders and the new standing orders is not much. Please, I'm pleading with him. You should never say this anywhere. Because the evidence speaks for itself. In any case, Parliament does orientation periodically. He missed a lot for not attending this seminar.
Mr. Demoko, I'm not sure if we still have you on, if it's a network issue, but I was hoping you can give us an estimate of how much is going into this so that we can also understand the arguments the minority is making. And
I think as the media have pointed you where to go. Even if you ask the speaker will not be able to tell you. It is the clerk of parliament. So if you want the financial implications for coming to Volta Serene, speak to the clerk to parliament. The clerk can speak to it.
But a quick interjection, Roxanne. So from what you've said, it would then imply, and correct me if I'm wrong, that between the last time you went to Volta Serene and now, there wouldn't be a substantial difference in cost. Is that what you are thinking?
At all. I am saying that Parliament invited quotations, and Parliament will take the best quoted price. And anybody with a business person who has a continued business relationship with state institutions, they do what they call rebated rates. They give you rates that they think they can repeat you can always come back to them. They will not give you a going rate. Anybody who has do that for business knows this.
All right, so
and I think that the quotation that Volta Serene gives to Parliament is very competitive.
Okay, so it would stand to reason, business-wise, that for repeat customers, you would want to give them a certain rate because you are getting a lot from them. But on the other hand, listening to the MPP's argument as well, back then, Rock City and a few things that came up, we decided, no, let's be in Parliament and do it. The circumstances of our country have not changed substantially. Could we have had a less expensive option? Or could we maybe have done it within the precincts of Parliament and thus save the Ghanaian taxpayer quite a bit of money? Is that not possible?
The orientation that was done in Parliament was for only first-timers. And Speaker said they needed that to be able to even stay the course for the first 2 months of Parliament. So it was not done for the entirety of the 275 members. It was done for only fresh men and fresh women. That number, Parliament has enough space to accommodate that. That's the number.
Right. And
so it was organized at the GF Annan Auditorium, where a lot other seminars take place.
Mr. Demoko.
Now the final thing I want to say is that this issue of the orientation is an orientation that is on Parliament's calendar every session. And the venue varies. And it varies based purely on the commercial rate that is given to Parliament. Now, he's not in leadership. The complaint of his leaders as of Thursday was that both leaders, me, I'm the majority chief whip, but the complaint was that we were not consulted in respect of preparing the program for the retreat. That was the complaint of their leadership. And I share that at least the clerk and his officers also have, done some consultation with leadership of Parliament in respect of as to who, for instance, will be facilitators and all that. Those were their complaints. It was nothing about money.
Referencing the President's State of the Nation's address, he mentioned that the economy is in crisis. I guess the question on everyone's mind is, moving to Volta Serene Hotel, is that financially prudent for a country where we're trying to reset the economy and we have over 700 million in debts and so on and so forth? Is this a financially prudent move for Parliament right now?
The country is broke, so Parliament cannot work. So Parliament cannot work, the judiciary cannot work, the executive cannot work. Was this the argument that we had when TVDD was poisoned on us? This is Parliament conduct. It's normal business. What are not usual for Parliament too. So unless that is that every Parliament paid, but parliamentarians cannot be paid. They are waiting at the end of the month. Then I would say that then there's no need to even conduct of the in-service training for parliamentarians and parliamentary service staff.
Roxanne, right before we go to Samuel Beng, and you've explained quite a bit, but just a final point. I'm curious, if you go ahead, the minority says it will not partake in it. You've mentioned that in some previous instances, you've had maybe some people not able to participate. Maybe it's just for first timers. If they insist on not participating and the rest of you in the majority go, what it would mean is that later on, you probably would have to conduct this exercise again for those who did not attend at the cost of the taxpayer. Is it still prudent to do that?
Now, the argument he makes is that coming to Volta Serene was at a certain economic burden for us, which was not necessary. They are 8 members. They've done it before. In fact, in 2000, I believe 2023, or 2023 or 2, during the post-budget seminar, they pushed for the budget seminar to be held Rock. We disagreed with Volta Serene because the rates were more competitive. Rock came back to say they will offer it for free. We still decided that we go to Serene. They didn't join us at Serene. They went to Rock City to hold their post-budget seminar, and the minority, as we were there, we proceeded to Volta Serene to hold our post-budget seminar. So it is not something that they have not done before. The fact that they didn't join us in hold doesn't mean.
But was that financially prudent? Very quickly, was that financially prudent? Some going to Rock City, others going to Volta Serene.
According to the number, hold on. You spend according to the number of rooms you take. That's the common sense thing. So
okay.
If you don't have 250.
It appears we've lost Roxanne Nelson Dapiamepo, maybe right on cue, but it's an interesting point he makes. Let me come to Vincent Ekoesefua. You have some reactions. Please make them a bit brief so I can also bring in Samuel Beng.
It's very laughable listening to Dapiamepo. Very laughable because of the way he wants to defend this unfortunate approach taken by the Speaker of Parliament and the majority in Parliament. The argument that Dapiamepo is making today is that because the numbers is huge. At the presence of Parliament, we cannot host the numbers over there. How did we host the numbers in 2022? How did we do that? On what basis is he now saying that the numbers are huge? The same numbers of Parliament, the same 275 people that they supported. And if you listen to the Speaker of Parliament very well at the time, it did not appear that this is someone who had no role to play in choosing a venue for orientation or post-budget workshop. It did not. If you listen to him very well, in fact, he made mention of the fact that it will be very betrayal. It will be a betrayal of the people of Ghana if he allows such an orientation or post-budget workshop to happen at Rock City because we are broke. This is what they said. Why are they now shifting the goalpost?
The question was asked. Why? Just because I put him to the sword, I have to put you to the sword as well. As an MP in his 9th year, so 2 terms in Parliament, and now he started another one. This is your 2nd term, so your 5th year in Parliament. He has been to Volta Serene, which means Ande Akufo-Addo, many times, 7 times. This is not the first time you're having interactions with them. How is it that fairly, all of a sudden, Volta Serene Hotel has become so expensive that the same Parliament that over 9 years has been patronizing that facility no longer can do so? Is it merely to say that once we say the economy is hard, things have come to a standstill, so Parliament can have no money to engage in such things? Is that what you're saying?
In 2022, when the Speaker of Parliament and the minority then and the majority now made mention of the fact that it was economically, or if you like, financially not prudent for us to do so. From 2022 till now, how many years? 3 years now. So in any case, if
in 2022, Vincent, in 2022, we were just on the cusp of coming out of COVID-19. We were getting into an IMF program. We had the DDEP that was already beginning to take shape, though at that time it hadn't started. All of these things were happening. At the time, don't you think there was more reason for us to be more efficient with our money? And I'm not saying that this is inefficiency, but at the time, you listen to even the groups that came out, Catholic Bishops' Conference and the rest. There was a lot more pressure at the time not to do some of these things. Was there not, to be fair?
What I'm saying now, so now are you saying that, or are we now advancing the argument that we have a better situation than 2022? But our people never said so. Are we now saying that we have a better situation than 2022? So the point I'm trying to make is that even in 2022, if Dafia Mapo is saying that he has been in Parliament for 9 years, if you subtract the 3 years from it, because you are in 2025 now, that would be 6 years, right? So the 6 years that he's been in Parliament...
5 years, because we just started 2025.
The 5 years that he's been in Parliament, it was good for us to do it at Volta Serene. But in 2022, it was no good. What has changed from that time till now? That's the point I'm trying to make.
All right. Just a quick one. Just a quick one.
His Excellency, the President himself in Parliament told us that our economy has been criminally managed. It means that we are broke.
Right. Just a quick one. Sweetie Abachi will take it over from there and also later bring in Sami Obeng. But Dr. Ezekiel Obeng, he's a member of your MPP Communications Directorate. And today he joined us on the show. He said he proposed something interesting, that members of Parliament walk. You don't drive. You walk from Parliament and go to, I believe, Sweetie, was it City Campus he was mentioning? You go to City Campus or around that area, the precincts, and do it there. As a member of Parliament, would you be willing to do that? You know, I see how you people like to use your cars, ACs and all that. Would you be willing to walk from Parliament to that place and go?
No, why not? I am a young man. Sometimes I commute from Parliament to my office at the ministry. I just use the AICC inside National Security and I'm at my office. I don't necessarily have to drive. Okay. You understand? So I don't have a problem doing so because I still have some energy in me. I'm still strong. to be able to do so? Well, there are some of us who may not be able to do so because of health reasons. And it is not because they don't want to do so or because they feel that it is right for them to use their cars. No, there are some of them who may not be able to do so. But for me and some young people in Parliament, we will be able to commit.
So should we say that, I mean, the minority
to,
as a group, would you be willing to do this? Let's say the few that may have health situations would not do it. Would you, as a minority, would you take this up, especially as Dr. Bing is a communicator? Would you take it up and say, look, we're going to take this up, we're going to walk to this place and propose that?
I honestly don't have a problem at all.
Okay, all right.
Well, you know, a boycott, like in this case, could delay critical parliamentary work like we're seeing. But critics also argue that a boycott weakens your influence as minority rather than strengthen it. How would you respond to concerns that this boycott is counterproductive?
Well, it depends on how you look at it. But when we have a political architecture where in Parliament it seems that the majority will always have its way, the minority can only have its say. If you don't have the right opportunity to be able to vociferously make your point in Parliament, you have to use other means for the Ghanaian people to also understand what is happening. And so on the floor of Parliament, I think that we did not have enough opportunity to espouse whatever we wanted to say. And so it is proper for us to boycott for the Ghanaian people to know what we intend actually doing or what we seek to achieve. You remember last Friday after the business committee statement was made by the majority leader, an argument or if you like a proposal was made that this time they are going to now share the speaking in Parliament based on ratio, proportional speaking. So 3:1 kind of because of the numbers in Parliament, something that has never happened before. So in such circumstances, if you don't have your way to be able to say the kind of things that you want to say, so that the Ghanaian people will understand the position of the minority, you have to adopt other means. So it depends on how you look at it. In this particular instance, I don't think that it is counterproductive.
Well, let's bring in Samuel Bing now. He's Executive Director of Parliamentary Network Africa. Sir, thank you for joining the conversation. And feel free to reflect on some of the points in the arguments we're having so far. But I want to talk about the opposition protest strategy. I mean, I've been thinking about it. Is this a form of protest against government actions, or is this abandonment of duty? In your expert opinion, what does this look like?
Thank you, Sweetie, and Ben and all the other panelists on the call. Let me first start from, as you invited me to reflect on some of the points that had earlier been made. Then I come to the substantive question that you had put forward. For the past 12 years, I've been engaged with the Parliament of Ghana, either working with Parliamentary Network Africa or even when together with my friend, the Honorable Vincent Assefuwa, we were offering service to nation when he was my National Service President, and I was also offering my service in the Parliament of Ghana. We've seen, even before then, the evolution of MP's orientation, how it started, what it had been like in the past, and what it has transformed into. People will recall that, from its early days of small sessions in Parliament to when civil society had some resources to support it, and Parliament was holding it in Gempa for a couple of years, to when MPs protested and said Gempa was not bourgeois enough, to have members of Parliament spend a week there for their MP's orientation, to when it started moving to other facilities. We've seen all of this happen over the years. And yes, it is true that whenever a new Parliament is constituted, we have members of Parliament expected to go through this orientation. So it's a very important activity on the parliamentary calendar. In fact, it is one of the things that we advocate for in all of the parliaments that we work in, as Parliamentary Network Africa. It has become one of the very important activities on every parliament's calendar to take members of Parliament through orientation. And so for us, with this evolution, we've been excited to see that this process has moved away from one that was heavily civil society supported or let me say, development partner supported to one that Parliament itself now has its skin, in the game and is taking, its own orientation and capacity development of its members of Parliament very serious. To the extent that now it is being coordinated by the Parliamentary Training Institute, which is, a department within the Parliament of Ghana, intended, set up to look at matters relating to MPs, capacity building of members of staff, and what have you. But in doing this, it is important also that Parliament considers matters relating to cost, especially for an arm of government or an institution of state that has complained about budgetary allocation, about the resources that the budget makes provision to the Parliament of Ghana and how it affects even sometimes committees and their ability to do work. And so for Parliament to be able to make all of these assessments to know where best they need to put their monies. So orientation is important, but it's an institution that has budget deficits or does not have all of the resources it needs to do the work. And so it must be very prudent in managing its resources. And that's where the Parliamentary Service comes in. And the Honorable Majority Chief Whip mentioned that these things are coordinated by the Parliamentary Service, the clerk, together with the service, accounts office, the various procurement people go through the processes and what have you. What is happening in recent times really puts the members of staff of the Parliamentary Service in a very difficult situation, because what we are seeing appears to me like a group of members of Parliament or leaders of Parliament who are more interested in where some of these activities go based on who manages, owns, runs these activities. And the optics are not good for the Parliament of Ghana. The optics are putting the staffers of Parliament who are doing some very diligent job on these matters under very, very tight situations. And if we do not take care, these things may crash on our head. Why? We've had an instance where, because both sides of the aisle did not agree on where to hold a particular orientation, MPP MPs decided we are going to what is considered the MPP Hotel of Rock City. NDC MPs considered to go to what is considered as the NDC Hotel in Volta Serene and hold separate trainings. When, yes, the argument can be made that, well, it's about per head. So the individuals that go, the number of rooms that you take is what you actually get to pay for.
Yeah.
But the facilitators are not per head. You get two sets of facilitators to facilitate two different workshops, which could have been one. The parliamentary staffers that come in as support staff will have to play here and will also have to play here. Those are extra costs that could have been avoided. And so the optics are not good. And they should stop giving us the impression that there is something to probe into on whose facility gets used and why it gets used, and under what circumstances Parliament will be willing to use somebody's facility at the expense of another. Having said that, now let me go to the substantive bit on boycotts and whether it is an essential to effective or efficient tool for minority protest. There are many tools available to members of Parliament to express themselves and express grievances. Some of them are the kinds of tools that you employ when you are seated in Parliament. You ask questions, you debate, you make statements, you filibuster, and all of that. There are those also that you employ to show your absence. In all of it, I always say that parliamentary business is as much about the rules and orders of Parliament as it is about also your strategy. And if as a caucus you choose a particular strategy, you must be willing and able to assess the implications of that strategy, short-term, medium-term, and long-term. If members of Parliament in the minority caucus decides that they are not participating in an orientation workshop, where all members of Parliament are supposed to participate and very essential things will be taught at that orientation workshop, then you ask yourself, would it be in the interest of leadership who probably have been to some of these orientations 3, 4, 5 times? Or what will be the implications on newer members of Parliament who need this? Look, we've had workshops and training sessions and sessions with members of Parliament at different levels, first-timers, second-timers, third-timers at Parliamentary Network Africa. And at every point in time, you know that there is something new that needs to be learned. So I'm looking at what will be the implications on members of Parliament within the caucus who refuse to attend this. Would it be that later on there will be another orientation for the minority members, or would Parliament decide that it is done and that is it? And so they should go and bear their own crosses on how they get to cope within the presence of Parliament. These decisions must be taken, and must be taken with some of these future intentions in mind. But Parliament must also be careful in not creating the impression that these procurement decisions are made on the back of who knows who, rather than proper procurement processes.
That question you just posed, I posed it to Roxanne Nelson Dafia-Mekpo, and he also brought in the Rock City Volta Serene issue. Because of where you work, maybe you can influence some of those thoughts. But very quick question. We'll also bring in Dr. John Osai-Kwapong shortly. On the back of historical antecedents, Dafia-Mekpo, for example, says this is his 9th year in Parliament. He's been to Volta Serene 7 times, spanning different administrations. Is there a case for Volta Serene Hotel? And if not, what are the options? Or are there better options? Is there an alternative that maybe we could look at? Where do you stand on that, on the back of the historical antecedents?
Ben, on the back of historical antecedents, for the 12 or so years that I have been involved with Parliament of Ghana, I can name about 5 hotels in this country which are considered our Parliament's place of engagement. You know, many times I have had reason to participate in parliamentary engagement and activities at Rock City, at Volta Serene, at Capital View in Koforidua, at AH Hotel in Accra, at Alisa in Accra. You know, you would receive an invitation from Parliament, and these are some of the very obvious choices that you would find. Some would say that for every institution, you have your list of suppliers. You know, the procurement department has a list of suppliers which indicates a group of institutions that you work with repeatedly.
So if it goes to any of these within the number you've mentioned, there's no surprise.
Well, I would not be surprised at all. And of course, the same way that I will not be surprised if Parliament creatively tries to do some of these things using some of its nicer facilities that it has in Parliament, which helps to save cost. And so there is that cost-benefit analysis, which I believe that for an institution that always complains about budget constraints, these must occupy the minds of, you know, parliamentary service staff, procurement officers, decision makers in Parliament.
All right. Let's bring in Dr. John Osai-Kwapong very briefly. What is your appreciation of this entire situation, especially from the governance perspective and cost saving? Quick thoughts?
Well, good morning, Benjamin. So for me, it's, I keep wondering what to expect from the 9th Parliament. I keep wondering whether there is still a spillover effect from the way that things went in the 8th Parliament. I used to think that the 8th Parliament was a reflection of how closely divided Parliament was. But you're still seeing signs of that deep differences between the majority and the minority on some of these matters. And this is even before other substantive matters comes before the House, like the budget. And so from a governance perspective, I just fear that it is going to be a continuation of, the majority having the numbers and therefore can choose not to, engage the minority, which for me, I don't think it would be helpful because no matter what, you still need the input of the minority in government business. But at the same time, too, I also don't think that some of these tactics, whatever is motivating the minority to engage in some of these tactics, does not also become a political strategy to be disruptive to the governance process. So some way, somehow, the leadership of the two caucuses, I believe, would really have to sit down and have an honest conversation and then bring their individual caucuses along, because we can't, at least for me, in my opinion, we can't afford this to drag through the entire life of the 9th Parliament, right? That even if we are disagreeing on an important, event as the orientation of MPs and where to have it, right, can cause this kind of a rift. Then you can only imagine when even other more substantive issues are brought before the House.
Doc, I know we have to go, but I'm curious to just ask you, we've seen a number of walking outs, boycotting from the minority side. Does that give us a sense that the majority is unwilling to engage? I know our democracy thrives on dialogue and engagement, but we are seeing a lot of boycotting and walking out. What does that tell you?
Well, it goes back to my point of what the political strategy is for the minority and how accommodating the majority also would feel they have to be. I mean, the reality is that I'm sure in the minds of the majority, they have no political incentive, right, to be overly accommodating of the minority because they have the numbers, right? But you also cannot say that because you have the numbers, you can, if there are really legitimate concerns being expressed by the minority,
right,
you can ignore that. But at the same time, too, I don't think the minority should overplay its hands, right? Knowing that they don't have the numbers. It's a give and take to get us to a place where we can have more cooperation, less acrimony, to get the business of the House done.
Ben.
Well, thank you so much, Doc, for joining the conversation. And don't go away, stay with us because we're also hosting you on our very next conversation. But those who joined us for this conversation, Dr. John Osai-Kwapong, he's a CDT fellow, you just heard him. Roxanne Nelson Dafeamekwo, MP South Dine. We also had the Otafo legislator, Vincent Eko Asifua, and Samuel Bing of Parliamentary Network Africa. He's the executive director. They joined us for this conversation. Do stay. There's a lot more coming your way. We'll be right back.